There's been a major meltdown over some of the top comedians selling out to perform in Saudi Arabia's Riyadh Comedy Festival because they do a lot of human rights violations over there. But some of these comedians have been paid $1.6 million for a single performance. And in this video, a comedian will weigh in on it all. I'll also tell you about this.
Tim Dillon fired from Saudi Arabia's first comedy festival.
That's right. I'll tell you what Tim Dillon did to get fired from the festival before he even got there. Welcome back to the JP Rex channel, my freedom-loving friend. This is where we help spread the light of truth and freedom because truth conquers. Now, this story caught my attention because there has been some major backlash. Is it woke or is it on principle over comedians taking a lot of money to go do a single performance in Saudi Arabia? You know, the country does some human rights violating kind of things. We'll see exactly what they do in a second. But I have a perspective on this because I'm a comedian. So I have an opinion. You're going to hear it. But you can just see... Just scrolling YouTube, there's major meltdowns. Bill Burr's in the center of it all, largely because he's been quite a woke sellout comedian as of late. But many people are not liking these comedians choosing money over potentially principle. And of course, Bill Burr was one of the big headliners there. Who else was a headliner? Andrew Schultz, Aziz Ansari, Bill Burr, Chris DiStefano, Chris Tucker, Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, Whitney Cummings, Tom Segura, amongst others. Louis C.K. in there for good measure as well. Now, the backlash these comedians are receiving is pretty much rooted in Saudi Arabia does some really bad things to people. And you going over there is essentially you supporting that. That's what the criticism says. Is that valid or not? I'll share my opinion as we go, and of course love to hear your opinion in the comments. But first, to some facts about what are the human rights violations that Saudi Arabia does. So, according to ChatGPT, which has more intel on it than I certainly do. By the way, we can start with slavery. Apparently, Saudi Arabia does that. Suppression of free speech and dissent. No freedom of expression or press. Criticism of the royal family government or Islam is criminalized. So this is like very Muslim kind of way of life. Keep the borders open, right? Imprisonment of dissidents, activists, journalists, and academics are frequently detained without fair trials. By the way, I'll show you in a second the language in the contract of what the Saudi Arabia government, like the prince who's sponsoring this whole festival, like what the comedians were contractually obligated to not say. Lack of political freedom. There's an absolute monarchy, no national elections, no freedom of assembly, or you're just kind of thrown in jail. Discrimination against women. This is a fan favorite. Women historically needed male permission for many activities. Some restrictions have been eased, but discrimination persists. Domestic violence laws exist but are weakly enforced. That's probably just an oversight. Religious discrimination. Islam is the only officially recognized religion, so a lot of diversity there. Judicial and criminal system abuses. Reports show that detainees, including activists and minors, have been tortured for confessions. Public executions. Beheadings are still carried out, often for nonviolent crimes like drug offenses. Well, they're probably not going to do it again if you behead them. Yada, yada, yada. And apparently gay marriage or gay coupleship is illegal there, punishable by potentially some of this stuff, but it's a criminal offense. And this would be one of the countries that rumor has it they'll throw gay people off roofs. And of course, the trans is, you're not allowed to be trans there, or at least pretend you're trans. Maybe they got some things right. Maybe they've got some things in a human rights violating column. So that's what the critics cite as, like, they do this stuff, not just like in their history, but in their present over in Saudi Arabia. Also, do they do anything with 9/11? Okay. Now, one comedian received a contract, didn't sign it. Atsku Comedy on Threads. It's a thriving social media platform, apparently. get to the actual language in the contract about what they're not allowed to say while they're there in just a second. According to him or her, can't tell, the money is coming straight from the Crown Prince, who actively executes journalists, people with non-lethal drug offenses, bloggers, etc. without due process. A lot of the you can't say anything anymore comedians are doing the festival. They had to adhere to censorship rules about the types of jokes they can make, to be expected. And here's the content restrictions allegedly from the contract. Artists shall not prepare or perform any material that may be considered to degrade, defame, or bring into public disrepute, contempt, scandal, embarrassment, or ridicule the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, including its leadership, public figures, culture, or people, the Saudi royal family, legal system, or government, any religion, religious tradition, religious figure, or religious practice. Great. So, thought on that. But first, in just a second, we're going to get to Tim Dillon, who accepted being a part of this Riyadh Comedy Festival, paid $375,000 for one performance, and then he got fired before he even got there for some things he said. Show you that in a second, but first, here's one thought for starters from My Opinion Bank. This would be a terrible environment for comedy. Before we even get to the principle, is this wrong? Is it right? Is the backlash right? Or is it just woke nonsense? This would be a terrible environment for comedy. First, you're playing to Saudi Arabia. There are massive cultural difference. Notice the human rights violations. Those are just parts of the culture. So the jokes that comedians have, I don't think would go very well over there. And then you'd say, well, a comedian could write some Saudi Arabia specific jokes. Well, not really. I mean, you see these content restrictions. So to me, it just seems like a crappy gig. Comedians hate doing crappy gigs. However, many comedians will say, well, I love getting great money. Doing a crappy gig is worth it. So just the nuts and bolts of it, this would be an absolute crappy gig. Now, would I do this comedy I didn't get invited, but if I was, would I do this comedy festival? No, for two basic reasons. One is, they can imprison you or do whatever they want to you, behead you, kill you, whatever they want for speech. They don't have freedom of speech there. And it's not like, they say they do, but they really don't. Kind of Biden years here in America, they just don't have freedom of speech. So it's hard to be funny if you're not able to speak freely. And especially if you're not able to speak freely in a way where there's like potential jail time or physical harm coming to you for speaking freely. So I wouldn't do this. And then, of course, I'm kind of a freedom-minded person. I'm not a tyrannical Sharia law Muslim culture kind of person. So this would just not be at all pleasurable to be a part of. Would I worry about, hey, I am empowering Saudi Arabia to continue to be bad guys if I went? No, I don't think I would. Going there is going to move the needle at all when it comes to bad things that government is doing to their people. I'm not delusional enough to think that. I think the woke crowd is, and that's part of the reason why the woke crowd is giving backlash. By the way, the freedom lovers are giving backlash to comedians on this too. But I just wouldn't go. I wouldn't be a part of it because I like freedom. I don't want to be in a place where there is no freedom and there's a very real potential I could violate some tyrannical Muslim law they have that then brings me harm. I wouldn't want that. We'll get back to the video in just a second, but first, did you know there's one phase of sleep that almost everyone fails to get enough of? And this one phase of sleep is responsible for most of your body's daily rejuvenation, repair, generating weight loss hormones, controlling hunger, boosting energy, and more. I'm talking about deep sleep. And if you don't get enough of it, you'll probably struggle with cravings, slow metabolism, premature aging, and even worse conditions. But why don't most people get enough of this number one most important phase of sleep? Well, a big reason is magnesium deficiency, because 80% of our population is deficient in magnesium. Now, before you go out and buy just any magnesium supplement on the market, understand this: most contain just 1 to 2 forms of magnesium, when the reality is your body needs all 7 forms of this most essential sleep mineral. That's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms of magnesium designed to calm your mind, help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. My experience is the deep sleep benefits are very noticeable. For an exclusive offer, go to bioptimizers.com/JPReacts and use discount code JPReacts to save 15%. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you'll also ensure your monthly supply is guaranteed. That's bioptimizers.com/JPReacts. Now back to the video. So on principle, I don't have a problem with comedians doing this. On principle, I am an American. I love the American way of life. And quite honestly, I am shocked that people are shocked that some of these comedians are, quote unquote, selling out to bad people for money. Here's why that shocks me. Many of these comedians have already done that. They're a part of the Hollywood system. And I would dare say going to do the Saudi Arabia Comedy Festival is one of the least harmful things some of them have been a part of. But did you see the name Kevin Hart? Right? Do we know who was at the Diddy parties more than anybody? Have we seen someone just sell out to Hollywood, be a part of the woke Hollywood propaganda communist machine more than Kevin Hart? I don't think so. Bill Burr's on there. He's a brilliant comedian, and yeah, he is sold out to Hollywood. A guy like that stands for nothing, will do anything for anything as a result. Tom Segura's part of the Hollywood model. Winnie Cummings is part of the Hollywood model. Andrew Schultz, he's not really in Hollywood. He's certainly closer to it than some. Chris Tucker, through and through Hollywood. Mark Norman's on there. He's more independent, but he's doing it. Pete Davidson, Saturday Night Live. Pete Davidson, there is no bigger propagandist in this lineup than Pete Davidson. It is literally offensive to me that people are shocked that these comedians who have sold out to bad people to portray bad things. It is offensive to me that anyone is shocked that these comedians are doing this. Now, I'm saying that, on principle, I'm not against them doing it. On principle, I am shocked that anybody is shocked that these sellout comedians are, selling out. By the way, I'm not saying all these comedians are sellouts. I'm saying Bill Burr is a sellout. Kevin Hart is a sellout. Pete Davidson is a sellout. Tom Segura, I don't know, he's kind of Hollywood-ish. Winnie Cummings, pretty Hollywood-ish. So maybe they're sellout. Like Chris Tucker, absolute sellout. Aziz Ansari, absolute sellout. And I'm not even saying sellout is a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what they've done. Check their Hollywood IMDb, ladies and gentlemen. Now, very interesting is Tim Dillon, who was on the Joe Rogan podcast before the festival, before he got fired from the festival. We'll see why he got fired from the festival in just a second. And Joe was surprised. He's like, "You're going to that festival?" Tim Dillon's rationale for why he was doing this, it makes perfect sense. It's inarguable. He disarms the critics so brilliantly.
He's yelling at these...
My Islamophobia and my love of bacon are completely separate things.
Not only that, you can go to Muslim countries and yell, "I love bacon." There's no laws against it.
I will be doing it at the Riyadh Comedy Festival very soon. Get your tickets! Get your tickets!
Are you really going to go there?
Of course I am.
Wow.
Why would I not?
Or
they kill gay people and women? By the way...
Also, by the way, Tim Dillon is gay. Why the Saudi government, who's against gay people, has him over. Maybe they just didn't know, or maybe they're stupid, or I don't know.
We say this about every Muslim country is throwing gay people off the roof all the time, by the way. Okay? I obviously don't agree with Saudi Arabian policies on women, things like that.
Yeah.
Is it my business to tell Saudi Arabia how to live? Truly.
How big was the check?
$375,000 for one show.
Nice.
That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad.
I'll take that.
I'll watch a behanding for that.
Behanding?
Yeah, it's called a behanding. What happens is they cut the hand off the thief.
Yeah.
Here's
Don't
the thing.
steal.
All the people that have yelled at me for this are...
Pay attention. He's getting to the beautiful point that disarms the woke critics.
also pro letting migrants and refugees into America at very high numbers. Now, the same religion that is supposedly so terrifying that I cannot spend 24 hours in that country is the same religion that all these migrants and refugees are pretty supportive of that are coming over.
Yeah.
So it feels weird to me that people are getting on a moral high horse and going, it is so dangerous to go to Saudi Arabia for 48 hours. Why? Well, because they do X, Y, and Z. Why do they do that? Well, they're this religion is crazy. I go, okay, but then who's coming into our country? How differently do they feel about all of these things? And then if you poll them, they don't feel that differently.
And there he disarms the woke critics who say, they have a bad culture over there. What's their culture? Muslim. Do you know you're letting in all these illegal immigrants that you literally fight to keep them here? You protest ICE. Do you know what religion they are? Yeah, Muslim. We want them here. We love their culture. It's brilliant disarming of the woke critics. And here's Tim Dillon on why he got fired from the Saudi Arabia Comedy Festival. He offended the royal family before he even got there.
He called me a few days later, and I thought he was going to talk about the Kimmel thing. But he called me and he said, they heard what you said about them having slaves. And I said, I was being positive about it. I was defending them. He goes,
And he makes it funny.
well, I know that. I know you were defending them. I said, I was defending them for having slaves. I literally said, slaves are probably hard workers and, for the most part, agreeable. But they didn't like that. You can literally support somebody too much. I've learned this. You can actually, by the way, in life, this happens.
So he was making jokes on his podcast about how, they weren't even jokes, how Saudi Arabia has slaves and they build stuff and the buildings look magnificent. They do good with slaves. So word got back about that to the festival organizers, that is the Saudi Arabia government. So they cut him from the show. And Tim Dillon absolutely feels great about that. Because what he goes on to say, I'll just summarize for you. He says, I get it. You know, during the festival, there's these contractual obligations. They don't want you to talk about this, this, and this. And if you sign the contract, you're agreeing to that. Now, that's a typical thing. If I'm doing a private gig, I remember doing a private gig not too long ago, and they're like, hey, this is a very religious crowd, just absolutely no swearing. Are you good with that? Yes, I'm good with that. If I'm not good with that, I'm not going to sign the contract and be out of integrity. So, cool, I'm good with that. So Tim Dillon was good with the restrictions of speech at the festival, but what he was not good with is his speech being controlled on his podcast in America, completely independent of the festival. He's like, I'm going to say what I want about Saudi Arabia on my podcast. And he said it, and he got fired for it, and he doesn't feel bad about it. Now, there were certainly many comedians who were offered huge sums of money to go over, and they said no, for whatever their principled reason was. And one of them is probably the biggest comedian in the world, second only to Dave Chappelle, Shane Gillis. Here's his rationale.
They
I'm
perpetrated
not,
9/11.
I'm not doing it.
That is good. I admire that.
Then they doubled the bag, and I was like,
They doubled the bag, the princes?
it was a significant bag.
What?
But I'd already said no. You know, I took a principled stand.
Yeah, against Saudi Arabia.
It wasn't even that. I didn't even think
I
about
thought
it.
we were allies with
I didn't
Saudi
even really
Arabia.
think. Yeah, we are. We give them a ton of
So why the hell they do 9/11 to us?
Wasn't Osama bin Laden just from Saudi Arabia?
Every single hijacker, basically.
Yeah.
is Saudi.
Saudi.
So Shane Gillis is kind of principled on the, they had a hand in 9/11 kind of thing, and that ain't cool with me. I'm not going. And given the fact that, you know, a comedian like Tim Dillon was offered $375,000 for a single performance, and the most popular comedians were offered $1.6 million for a single performance, my guess is Shane's offer was well north of $1 million. And I just have to say, I respect anyone who stands on their principles, no matter how much the money is that tempts them off their principles. And some comedians probably don't know what their principles are, probably have none. Some are just so used to selling out. Some are probably just good people, but they don't know what their principles are. But I will tell you, one thing I respect more than standing for nothing and selling out for anything is the honesty of some comedians saying, yeah, I'm just doing it for the money. Case in point, here's Mark Norman.
Get an offer to play.
I think I'm gonna go.
You're gonna go?
Well, I'm only
Where?
doing 2 days.
Where?
I'm going in and out.
Saudi Arabia.
Just to get that
I would do
paycheck.
that.
Yeah.
Almost no entertainment money comes from a good place.
No.
But, you know.
It's like, do you want to take it from them, or do you want to take it from someone who's probably assaulted, millions of people?
And Chris DiStefano, who also took the money, he makes the same point I did. Cool, like these Hollywood comedians, they're taking money from bad people doing bad things. Saudi Arabia, same kind of thing. I don't support either of those, but he raises a good point. So nonetheless, the internet will continue melting down, and some of these comedians will continue to receive backlash. In the end, I am shocked, as you know, that anyone is surprised that a Hollywood sellout comedian would sell out and take money. And I think there is a woke virtue signaling component to the backlash, which I don't support bending a knee to for any reason. And I think what most matters is what an individual's principles are. And if going to Saudi Arabia violates those, then taking the money is the wrong thing. If it doesn't violate those, then I've got no problem with it. But let me know what you think in the comments below about the backlash comedians are receiving for taking blood money. I look forward to seeing your opinions. And I'll see you on our next video. But until then, stay free.